In what's become an increasingly sceptical age, it's inevitable that people turn to science. Science seeks certainty on its own terms, and people build up from there. But they don't always think through its implications. If we turn to science, if we build our belief in humanity on the fact that we have evolved from animals and only that, where does that lead us? What does it teach us about love? Love, in those terms, is a very superficial thing. The evolution of the thing that a mother or father animal will have for its cubs, its offspring, the desire to protect against harm. Science, when it looks at the mind, at the brain, comes up with some surprising findings. It casts doubt on our independence, on free will. But the most shocking thing about science is that there is no evidence that love exists, except as a facet of our own instinct for preservation. That's the polar opposite of what Christians believe, because love is the fulfilling of the law. Or as we hear in today's gospel, love is the beginning of the first commandment. Jesus says to the lawyer that you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Heart, cardia, the word that gives us cardiology, the very centre of our being, the seat of all feelings. In the Greek language, they also had the term broken-hearted, gives us an idea of what that means. With all your soul, suki, it gives us the word psychology in medicine, originally meaning breath, as in the breath of life, but that fundamental spark that makes us alive, that animates something that isn't dead. And with all your mind, the root word there is nous, all our understanding, our thinking, our deep thinking, in the way that the word had evolved by the time Jesus had used it. How do we match up to that, loving God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our mind? It makes me think of that phrase in a hymn by John Newton, one you'll know. Weak is the effort of my heart, and cold my warmest thought. I think that's an excellent starting point for our relationship with God. If we have a sense that our love for God isn't what it should be, we can only move on from there. And how do we do it? We can't make ourselves love if we don't feel loving, if our heart is as cold as a stone. We start, of course, by pondering the mystery of God's love for us, with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength. The love that brought the world into being. The love that forgives us even when we fail and fail again. The love that enables us to restore relationships with our neighbour and indeed with our family. And loving our neighbour, or even members of our family as ourselves, is difficult if we can't appreciate that we ourselves are lovable. So again, we come back to that. The God who loves us, whatever we do, however feeble our own efforts. It's like sunbathing, someone said to me once on a retreat. Just think of prayer like that, lying in the sun, trying not necessarily to think about it, but just to absorb it, lying in God's sunshine, the love that changes us. Yesterday I was walking on Shoreham Beach, one of the pebbliest in my experience. We look at those pebbles, we think about them being shaped by the sea, grinding each other into a more rounded form. And love is a bit like that. We think of grinding as doing violence to ourselves, but love wears down our rough edges. Our experience of being loved teaches us how to love others. When we hold a pebble in our hands, we can think of God's economy changing and shaping us. In the Old Testament, we think about the hands of God shaping us as a potter shapes the clay. But our lives are sometimes a bit more like being ground down in a good way, being ground together in love, being remade by our neighbour, by being forgiven, by forgiving others. Forgiving others because that's what Jesus came to teach us to do. How often must I forgive my neighbour? 7 times? 77 times. And we begin by forgiving ourselves for not always being remade in the image of God. Jesus, my shepherd, brother, friend, my prophet, priest and king, my Lord, my life, my way, my end, accept the praise I bring. Amen.